The San Francisco 49ers continue to roll. They win over the New York Giants, and they're 3-0 right now. And the efficiency of Brock Purdy cannot be overstated. We'll talk about that here on the Locked On NFL podcast and give you all of our week 3 picks right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Chris Carter, Lorin Cox coming at you on a Friday. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast from the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your hosts, Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers and Lorin Cox from Locked On Bears, going at you with all the Friday action, getting you ready for the weekend and talking about that Thursday night football game. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of your daily Monday to Friday episodes from all the different hosts throughout the week. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Lorin, the Giants found a way to come back last week down to the Arizona Cardinals. No such comeback was happening with the San Francisco 49ers. They win 30-12 in this one. They're 3-0. The Giants are 1-2. And my biggest takeaway from this game, the Niners defense is still the Niners defense. Like that's just going to be maybe the best defense in football throughout the season. But this offense continues to be efficient, if nothing else. And Brock Purdy, a really great game yet again, 25 of 37, 310 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a passer rating of 111.3. What is your ceiling for Brock Purdy as a quarterback? Because I know everyone's going to call him a system quarterback, and he is. He just plays Kyle Shanahan's system better than most people play quarterback in whatever system or style they play.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's been kind of waiting, not necessarily for the wheels to fall off, but just for like him to come back to earth at least a little bit, right? Last year was the magical run as Mr. Irrelevant, and it was like, oh, this is a fun little story, but these things always kind of burn bright and then maybe burn out. And people think year 2 teams now have some tape on Brock Purdy, they can kind of attack his weaknesses, but we haven't really found, he's not like significant ones yet, right? He doesn't leave you with reckless passing that you can try and take advantage of. He doesn't make poor decisions with the ball. You could try and goad him into making a bad throw here or there. He feels the pocket so well that when Wink Martindale is blitzing him, I think they showed a stat during the game. Like, I don't remember. I think it was like the second quarter. He had blitzed on 80% of his dropbacks up to that point. Like, they were trying to throw different things at Purdy, have different pass rushers come from different areas, challenge that 49ers front to hold up and challenge Purdy to make the right protection calls at the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. He just continues to do it all. It doesn't need to be spectacular or flashy when you've got McCaffrey and Kittle and Samuel and et cetera in that offense. But there's nothing more you need to ask Brock Purdy to do. Like, he's checking the boxes.
Absolutely. He's checking the boxes. And again, I say he is a system quarterback. That's not an insult. That's just the talent that he has. I said that leading up to the Steelers game before they won 30-7. Like, Brock Purdy, the reason he's so good is because he's so good at taking instructions from Shanahan and just playing to his system to the T. And there's sometimes he has to improvise, but like they dial up like, hey, we're going to give you these easy passes throughout the game. We're going to give you these reads. Just stick to your keys. And then occasionally he'll take like 1 or 2 shots in the game. And you saw that pass he had to Deebo Samuel. He did the same thing to Brandon Ayuk against the Steelers, just down the sideline, back shoulder with the defender right over him to the pylon and to the front pylon. And it was a touchdown. He makes those plays look simple. And now you have a year where he's over 700 yards passing in 3 games. He's got 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And granted, he's not the most important part of this team right now. I think that's still guys like Nick Bosa, Fred Warner on that defense, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. But that's the thing. This roster is so balanced around him. You don't need Brock Purdy to be a superstar. And it brings into question what I think could come down the line. What will be his value? Let's say that he has, and if he continues these type of efficient numbers, like he's not, not the highest passer in the league, not the biggest scorer in the league, but they win. He still hasn't lost in the regular season. He hasn't lost a game he started and been able to finish because he wasn't injured. He's undefeated when he plays an entire game. And I know that's still a small sample size, but I wonder what is this guy's ceiling and what happens if they win the Super Bowl with him, and he's a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, when he's making such little money, like that's part of the secret to the 49ers success is that
Absolutely.
they can then pay all these other guys significant contracts when his cap hit this year, I think, is just under $900,000. It'll be just over $1 million next season. And if I'm Brock Purdy, like at some point I start looking around, and it's certainly not during the season, but like this offseason, and look around and say, well, wait a minute, I'm worth a heck of a lot more than $1 million. Why should I keep playing for you at this low salary? You don't need to give me Patrick Mahomes' contract. I've only done it for a couple of seasons, but like, can we find a way to do like a shorter term extension with a lot more of a pay raise just to sort of match that out? And, do you threaten to hold out and say, I'm playing too well to be playing for such little money. I have more value than you're willing to give me. And the 49ers say, well, screw it, we can find another Brock Purdy because he's a 7th round pick? Or do they say, well, we couldn't do it with Trey Lance, we couldn't really do it with Jimmy Garoppolo, Purdy may actually have some real value for us?
Yeah. There's a lot of questions as far as what the value will be moving forward. I look at the Niners and I think, like, man, like, you could say, well, they did this with Brock Purdy, they could do this with anybody, but they didn't do it with Trey Lance. They let Jimmy Garoppolo go. I think that there would be some value there, but I also wondered, like, what you're talking about with the value around the team. Does Brock Purdy look at that and say, look, I'll take less money to keep bringing in talent like this so that I can win all the games? Because you know what, Brock Purdy does win a Super Bowl, he's going to get all the ads. He's going to be a face in the NFL. He's going to get all that kind of money, and he can kind of parlay that into a full career. And if this system keeps riding like the way it does, the Niners could not just be a problem this year, but be a real problem for years. They have a lot of talent on their roster that can stick around for more than a few years now. And if Brock Purdy gets to be the quarterback through all of it, I think he'd be fine with that situation.
Yeah, it just, as long as the 49ers can squeeze this out, the better. And I just wonder, is there like a medium ground here where, because even if you extend farther out, as Purdy keeps playing well, like he's not going to be the guy who gets the absolute top tier contract. I mean, no one is putting Brock Purdy in the Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow conversation, and it doesn't seem like the ceiling, like keep talking about, like it's not quite there. Like he doesn't have that level of like elite arm and elite playmaking. So then, like, what is that worth? Is that a Derek Carr level contract? I mean, is that he's better than Derek Carr, but like that kind of contract. I mean, there's sort of that ceiling starts to muddy the waters here a little bit on like, well, what really is his long-term big time value? Do you want to invest in that? Or, I mean, how replaceable is that? You know what I mean? Because as much as we say, well, Lance couldn't figure out and Garoppolo couldn't figure out, I mean, Jimmy G kind of could for a little while. He couldn't stay healthy.
He got him to a Super Bowl. You're right.
Yeah, he got him there. And with Jimmy G, they didn't have this much talent around him. I think comparatively, Brock is in a better position than Jimmy G was. And Trey Lance maybe just was just kind of not a good pick in general. So, like, could you plug any number of quarterbacks around the league into this 49er system, give him a couple of seasons and get something close to what Purdy is for whatever will be less than top of market value for a quarterback? Like, it becomes really, really messy. And I think it's a combination of like, how actually good does Brock Purdy get? Like, can he start to take it to even another level beyond just checking the boxes and doing his job, but like elevating the level of play of players around him instead of them lifting him up a little?
I agree. It's going to be a big question moving forward. The 49ers are a team that right now they're undefeated. And I think one thing they've shown through 3 games, they can beat you in multiple ways. They can run over you. They can throw around you. They can play great defense. They have so many ways that make them a problem. And I think moving forward, like, they put themselves in position to kind of be that number 1 team in the power rankings across the league, and can maybe hold that pole position to be like, hey, we're gonna be a real issue, and we're gonna be a Super Bowl favorite this year. We'll see what teams challenge them over the weeks to come here on the Locked On NFL podcast. But we got a lot of games to pick through this weekend. Still a full slate, no bye weeks yet for any team. We'll pick all those different games right here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Chris Carter, Lorin Cox breaking things down for you. But first, before we do anything else, I want to remind you this show is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time is the best app to buy tickets from, whether you're buying tickets at the last minute or buying tickets for a favorite event that you see way down the line. Game Time is an app you can download right to your phone. They give you killer deals on last minute tickets, and they have a best price guarantee that can't be beat. Game Time is an app that if you download to your phone, you can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football games, basketball games, baseball games, concerts, comedy, theater events, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means that you're always going to get the best price. If you find the tickets in the same section and row for less at the same event somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to the website gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by DoorDash. Missing syrup for your pancakes or just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. Want even more value? You can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. Get 50% off your first DoorDash or order up to $20 values when you use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Limited time offer, terms and conditions apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNFL. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. Back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, Lorin Cox, we're breaking things down. We're going to get to pick all the other games that are ahead of us, and there's some really interesting games on the slate, some games that aren't so interesting. We'll get to those as well, but we're going to make our picks here. And a reminder, all the lines that we're presenting you guys are from FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. Let's start off with a game that I'm going to be very interested in on the 1 o'clock hour, and that's the Browns hosting the Titans. Lorin, the Browns are 3.5-point favorites. The Titans eked out a win against the Chargers last week, so they've gotten to 1-on-1. The Browns lost to the Steelers on Monday night on a short week. They've got to turn around, play 1 o'clock at home without Nick Chubb. They've re-signed Kareem Hunt. Jerome Ford was their other guy. I'm going with the Titans in this one simply because I think losing Nick Chubb is much bigger than people realize. I don't think Deshaun Watson has figured anything out yet, and I'm not sure that he's going to with the way that he's played so far.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that. If Chubb was in this game, it starts to be a slightly different conversation here.
Mm-hmm.
But without him, I still need to see Deshaun Watson get back to doing it. I really like the rest of the Browns supporting cast. Like that defense, real talent there, and offensively they've got some playmakers. But it's just when you don't have a consistent guy distributing it to them, and you don't have that running back that he can just rely on and lean on. Like sure, Hunt may be all right, and Ford can kind of do some stuff, but just I think I don't trust this Browns offense to kind of come together and keep up with a Titans team that isn't great, but is playing teams tough and is certainly right there in every game.
Absolutely. Let's move along here to, I think, a game that if you are a fantasy football person, you want players in this game that's coming up. It's the Chargers at the Vikings. The Vikings are being given 1.5 points. The over-under is set at 53.5 points here, Lorin. I'm taking the over because these guys are going to light it up. Both these defenses have shown that they're going to give up a lot of points, and both these offenses have explosive playmakers with quarterbacks that can get the ball all over the field. But I'm taking the Vikings here. They're at home. The Chargers are struggling. I heard Brandon Staley after that last game, and he's sounded frustrated. I think that the Vikings, this isn't going to be an easy win for them at all, but I think with their weapons, they'll do just enough to outdo the Chargers' offensive weaponry.
Yeah, this one's a coin toss for me, and I certainly don't want to come off as the Bears guy thinks the Vikings are going to lose, but
but the Bears guy thinks the Vikings are going to lose.
Well, I just feel like the Chargers are right there. You know what I mean? And they're always right there, but they're especially I think right there now. I just feel like Herbert has it in him, and we've seen them come really close, and the weapons are there, like you said. Defense is getting around, and I think as much as there's frustration with that organization, I think they can settle in. Certainly, I've seen Khalil Mack do a lot of damage against the Minnesota Vikings over the years, and I just don't trust that this Vikings defense can stay in front of Justin Herbert in that passing game. Whereas, I think the Chargers can, if you can just keep tabs on Justin Jefferson, not that Hawkinson is anything to scoff at there, but like I like the way that I just think the matchup bodes a little bit better for the Chargers there to like with two struggling defenses. I'll take the Chargers to be able to do just enough to slow down the Vikings offense. Whereas I think LA has enough different ways to attack the Vikings defense. They're going to try and blitz the heck out of Herbert, and I think he can get by that.
I hear you on that one. I think the Chargers, they're one of those teams that everyone's been looking at to turn it up. I will say, whenever I've been doing this show with Q, we're both guys like, listen, call me when the Chargers actually do it, because we are tired of hearing about how good the Chargers. And this isn't just Justin Herbert. This goes back to when Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson were there. It's just the Chargers, that team that always gets hyped up for something and then they fall flat on their face. I'm not saying they'll fall flat on their face in this game, but I also think this game's a toss-up. I just picked the Vikings, but I hear you on your reasons to pick the Chargers.
I'll say this about the Chargers: like we haven't had the chance to like hype them up yet this season. I mean, like we have. Right. Usually, the Chargers have to be good before they crap the bed, and so that means they're still going to have to get good first. So, like, I still think they will get good for a while there, and then crap the bed at the end of the year in the playoffs. But still got to get to that point first. I think they will at some point. Maybe not this week.
AFC East showdown, the Patriots at the Jets. The Patriots on the road are 2.5-point favorites here, according to FanDuel. But I'm taking the Patriots. I think the Jets, they have a defense still. They have pieces that are going to be good. I just think the Patriots have been playing tough these first 2 weeks. They had some tough draws with who they were playing and how they were playing. The Dolphins last week, the Eagles week 1. I think this is the week the Patriots show, like, all right, we took our lumps those first 2 weeks. We're taking it out on the Jets now. But I say New England. Do you think New York has a chance here, Lorin?
It feels like, I mean, I think the line is correct, right? Like only 2.5 points suggests like basically a toss up at home, but like, or no, I guess the Patriots on the road, but regardless, like it's a close spread. But Zach Wilson in particular has struggled against the Patriots. Like I know he struggled against everybody, but he's always been like particularly bad. Like New England and Bill Belichick always have a way to sort of get in Zach Wilson's head and get his number pretty well. And I agree. I think they've played two of the better teams in the NFL in the first 2 weeks, in the Eagles and the Dolphins. So certainly they'll be battle tested for the Jets. I don't think their 0-2 record is perfectly reflected in the talent what they've been able to squeeze out of the lack of talent that they do have. And I think Belichick, the coach, is going to start to overcome some of that in this one.
I'm right with you there. Moving right along, the Bills at the Commanders. Bills 6.5-point favorites. That's a lot of points. I think the Bills will win, but I think this is one I'd take the Commanders to cover here. Simply because I think the Commanders have been, a tough unit. But I also think that the Bills, they kind of woke up last week with what they did to the Raiders. But I could see this being a little bit closer just with the way that the Commanders have played, and the Bills, they were able to beat up on a team last week, but I still think that they have some cleaning up today to do. So I'm taking the Bills with the Commanders to cover, but what say you, Lorin?
Yeah, I see the Commanders as not exactly, but a little bit of an inverse of the Patriots, where they beat the Cardinals and the Broncos. And not that I think the Broncos are the very bottom of the league, but I'm not impressed by the Broncos whatsoever. And they gave up, 33 points to that Russell Wilson offense that otherwise hasn't been able to do a lot this season. Like I have a feeling Josh Allen's going to come in there and be able to get his. And I don't know that the Commanders have faced a defense that is as good as the Bills. So I'm a little scared for Sam Howell to come into that one. I think he'll start to come down to earth a little bit in this one. But again, like an ability to cover the spread in there, I like that as an option, but I still think Bills outright.
No, I feel you there. Another thing to look at here, the Commanders have the 7th best offense, 55 points scored so far this season. Shout out Eric Bieniemy. I think if they can keep that up, it's going to boost his profile and further prove it wasn't just Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes doing it. He did have value there, and look at where the Chiefs are in scoring right now. Certainly some questions there, but let's keep it moving. We got an AFC South showdown, Texans at Jaguars. Jaguars are 8.5-point favorites. That's a lot for a divisional game. So I'm going to take the Jaguars to win, but I'm going to take the Texans to cover also because I like what I've seen out of CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I was going to say similar things. Like for sure Texans to cover. But the Jaguars are good enough that I'm not ready to say like full on upset there, but I do think the Texans are closer than people think. Like they don't really have much of a running game right now. And certainly there's some questions with the offensive line. Like I get it. They're not like, I'm trying to say they're a good football team yet, but like, especially in a divisional matchup too, where those teams have gone back and forth a lot over the years. I think it's going to click. I mean, it's already clicking for Stroud. I think the clicking for Stroud is going to result in wins eventually. It's not quite going to be there just yet, but I mean, They do play the Pittsburgh Steelers the week after. That might be a better chance for the first win. But no, I think covering there seems pretty reasonable.
Absolutely. Moving along to the Colts Ravens here, the classic rivalry from the city that stole the other city's football team way back when, the Ravens hosting the Colts, where they always put Indy on the board instead of Colts because they will not acknowledge the Colts that left Baltimore on their scoreboards. And I don't think the Ravens are going to have to acknowledge the Colts much in this game. They're in a rough spot. Anthony Richardson's been dealing with it and been in concussion protocol. I think that they're a team that was going to struggle all year anyways. The Ravens are 8.5 points favorites, but I'll just give me the Ravens straight up, and I'll take the points. I don't care. I think the Ravens do some real damage here.
But no faith in Minshew mania coming to Baltimore?
I've seen this before.
I do love Gardner Minshew, but Lamar Jackson.
A lot of fun.
Say that again?
A lot of fun. He is a fun guy to watch. I don't buy it.
I agree. I don't buy it, especially on this Colts team. Like it's not a great supporting cast right now. But Lamar Jackson has been balling. I think it's been one of the undercovered storylines to start the season. Like through the first 2 games, he's really dialed in the receivers they've added on offense, the system. It's working for Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to torch the Colts, and I'll take the points as well.
Last game before we cut to a break here and we come back and finish out the rest of the slate this weekend. Falcons at Lions. This one's really intriguing to me. The Falcons have been playing tough so far this year, and I kind of like what I've seen out of them. They've been tough. They've been gritty. Desmond Ridder has looked, quote, good. It's kind of weird. Who would have pegged the NFC South to have 3 teams at 2-0 to start the season, looking like they might be a tough division when everyone had pretty much thought that was going to be one of the more boring divisions in the NFL. But the Lions are 3-point favorites at home. The Lions sitting at 1-1 after last week. But I've been going back and forth about this. I kind of feel the Falcons. I like what they're doing right now. I know that they're going to be on the road in Detroit, but I think the Falcons have figured some things out, and they're going to ride that wave and win against Detroit and be the most unexpected 3-0 team in the NFL this year. Lorin, am I crazy here?
I mean, not crazy, but like these are neither of these teams. I don't trust either one of them. I don't think either one of them is ultimately going to make a bunch of noise down the stretch. I mean, the Lions may be in NFC North contention, but they both may be in contention for first place because they're both in terrible divisions, which is also why I don't really trust them. But to me, I think I trust the Falcons a little bit less, even though they're 2-0. I don't think they've done a lot to really impress me with beating the Panthers and the Packers. I'm not super thrilled about either of those teams. And at least the Lions have beat Patrick Mahomes. It wasn't full strength Patrick Mahomes. It wasn't the Chiefs like we knew them last year, but they came out and beat the defending Super Bowl champions in the opening game of the season. Plus, went to overtime with the Seahawks, and maybe you don't like the Seahawks that much, but I do. And so I think the Lions have been a little bit more tested and have proven a little bit more to me in a 1-1 start than the Falcons have so far at 2-0. So I'll take Detroit begrudgingly.
I hear you as an NFC North guy. We got more picks to complete here to finish out the rest of the slate here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Don't go anywhere. You're going to get the picks from Chris Carter and Lorin Cox talking about all the different games this week, and including yours, because we're literally going through all of them. So before we go anywhere else, I want to remind you this show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy and the most fun you can have, winning up to 25 times your money this football season. All you do is pick 2 or more players, just say more or less on their projected stats, and you can win on any entry that you place. Prize Picks is the new fun daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. If you're big into fantasy sports, this is a way to get your daily fix by selecting individual player projections and simply making a simple decision. Are they going to get more or less than their projection given to you by Prize Picks? And you could do that for anywhere between 2 to 6 players. You do that, think you have a beat on their day in fantasy. If you guess right on your more or less, you can win money from Prize Picks, and you can make as many entries as you want in Prize Picks. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. This week on Prize Picks, look up TJ Watt. Will he get more than 1.5 sacks this week? What about George Pickens scoring more than half a touchdown? Those things could happen on Sunday Night Football in a matchup that we'll be talking about with the Las Vegas Raiders. But those are examples of what you can do when you're playing Prize Picks. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead up to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the PrizePicks app today and go to prizepicks.com to sign up and use play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, Lorin Cox breaking things down, finishing up the NFL slate for the weekend in our picks. Let's pick up right where we left off at, and it's still in the 1 o'clock hour. The Saints at the Packers. The Saints defense looks for real. The Packers defense does not. And they say defense wins championships, but defenses also travel well. The Packers are 1.5-point favorites on FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. But I'm taking the Saints. I think the Saints, their defense will travel well in this game. There'll be a problem for Jordan Love and his team, and I think that Derek Carr will figure out just enough on offense to make things work. Lorin, what you got here?
Yeah, you pretty much stole it right out of my mouth there. Like, great defense. I think Jordan Love is a lot more of a system quarterback than he's being accused of up to this point, and his completion percentage is still under 60%, but he's got the touchdown, so people, the passer ratings there, but I'm still not fully sold on Jordan Love as the long-term answer there. Plus, they don't have the kind of supporting cast around him that can really elevate him super high. So, yeah, not that I have all this faith in the world of the Saints either, but they've fought out some really tough, gritty wins to start this season, and I think it'll be another similar thing this week.
I hear you there. Moving right along, Broncos at Dolphins. Dolphins 6.5-point favorites. I'm taking the Dolphins. I don't need to see this much longer. The Broncos are not a good team. I think the Dolphins they put up a lot of points in this game.
It's the Vic Fangio revenge game, and I think Vic Fangio will get his revenge pretty well here. I think Tua and Tyreek will do a lot of damage, and the defense will shut down Russell Wilson. So I think Vic Fangio will know what to do.
The Panthers at the Seahawks. We start our 4 o'clock games here. The Seahawks are 6-point favorites, and Bryce Young is out, which means Andy Dalton gets to go in. And let me tell you, Andy Dalton's had some good moments in his careers. I don't think that he's going to have such a great moment against this Seahawks team that I think is going to. They've had some rough spots, but I think they're going to find their strength their strength soon, and I think that it's going to be this game where you start to see them playing well. I'll take the Seahawks.
Yeah, as someone a recovering Andy Dalton team coverer, yeah, I know what the Andy Dalton experience is like, and sure, that can work if you have a really good supporting cast around him and a good defense, but the Carolina Panthers are not that. And yeah, I don't think that one's going to go super well. I have more faith in the Seahawks, I think, than their record might suggest at this point. I think Geno Smith will kind of bounce back again and keep things right the ship a little bit in Seattle.
I hear you. Now the game that you'll be covering, Bears at Chiefs. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites, Lorin. That's a ton of points. Of course, I'm picking the Chiefs here, but should I pick the Bears to cover here?
So, I mean, this is as vulnerable of a Chiefs team as we've seen in a while. Certainly 100% of Chiefs, if you're picking straight up wins, yes, for sure, the Chiefs. That one I'm not going to, but like, and it's the worst. It's been the worst 3 days in recent Chicago Bears history with.
Bro, you had a week.
A lot of crazy stuff going on behind the scenes that hasn't been reported yet because you can't report some of this stuff. It's messy. And so this Bears team is either going to band together and be strengthened by the adversity, bringing them closer together, or things are going to fall apart even worse than they already have. And so if somehow they can take this adversity into something that helps them grow, this Chiefs team is injured. They don't have a lot of talent at receiver around Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of Travis Kelce is their whole offense right now. The defense is quite a bit better this season, but the Bears are going to change up a lot of things offensively and come out with kind of a new look this week, I think. So there's a chance they can surprise the Chiefs with how well they hang in this game, but not hang in and beat them. That's a step too far for me.
Cowboys at Cardinals, also a 12.5 point spread. The Cowboys, 12.5 points favorites here. I like Josh Dobbs. I like James Conner. I covered them both when they were with the Steelers, but Arizona's going to get stomped here. This is going to get ugly.
You don't think the Steelers rejects can take on one of the best teams in football? No, agreed. Like, I'll take the Cowboys and the points there. They're really clicking.
Absolutely.
What a terrible slate of 3 o'clock games we have.
Yeah, that is a terrible slate.
Except
Panthers, Seahawks. I mean, Bears, Chiefs. That's just there's going to be some tough ones there. But let's get to Sunday Night Football. Steelers at Raiders. The Raiders are at home and 2.5-point favorites. The Steelers have not won on the road against the Raiders since 1995. Granted, that was in the black hole where a lot of things didn't even work in that stadium. But now they're in Allegiant Stadium. Lorin, will the Steelers turn the tide there, or do the Raiders find their feet and get a big win?
After I saw TJ Watt and Highsmith dominate last week on Monday Night Football, it's hard for me to think the Raiders are going to come in and just right the ship all of a sudden. Like, I know certainly the Steelers offense has had all sorts of challenges, but there are a few teams I trust less, I think, than the Las Vegas Raiders over the course of a season. And Mike Tomlin always has his boys ready. So I'm going to go with the Steelers there, but not to blow smoke up your butt.
He's silly. No, but I also am going Steelers. I don't think this is a dominant win per se, but like the one thing the Steelers have been able to do well so far is defend the run, and the one thing that the Raiders can't seem to do is to run the football. So what's the opposite of when an immovable object meets the unstoppable force? Is it like the immovable object meets the force that's not going to move either? Like that's what could happen. Or wait, is it like the turnstile meets the immovable object? I guess that's what's going to happen there. But the Steelers defense, they have not stopped the run in either of their first games, but they are getting after the quarterback, especially TJ Watt, 4 sacks in 2 games, had a touchdown last game. Alex Highsmith had a pick 6 and a forced fumble that resulted in a touchdown on his sack, along with 7 tackles. I'm taking the Steelers because I think that their edge rushers will make the difference. They'll watch out for Max Crosby. He could be a problem for Kenny Pickett. Let's get to another double Monday night slate. Before we pick these games, Lorin, what's your opinion on double Monday night football games?
I'm never going to sit here and complain about having more football to watch on a weeknight, but first, like, the overlapping is not cool. Like, for a Monday night, like, separate them, maybe start the first one earlier. But like, I do like having 2 games, and I know like you're on the East Coast, so they're really late for you. But I feel like people on the West Coast are absolutely loving it.
Yeah, West Coasters love that. We'd like to go to bed, please. But I'll take less night games all year long. But let's get to these night games. First one, Eagles at Buccaneers. Eagles on the road and are a 4.5-point favorites. This is my upset alert, though, Lorin. I'm going Buccaneers. I've been impressed by how they've been playing. Baker Mayfield's been throwing to Mike Evans a lot like Johnny Manziel used to throw to him when they were at Texas A&M together. I think that the Buccaneers, their defensive front, does a lot of the with Vita Vea. He does a lot of the things that the Eagles like to do with their defensive front. I think that the Buccaneers and the Eagles, I don't think they've played their best game yet. And I think that they're still kind of working on getting back to where they were at the end of last season. And I think that the Buccaneers, they jump on that. And they're another team that if they do this, they'll be 3-0. And maybe they'll be the most unexpected 3-0 team going into the season. What say you, Lorin?
I found myself unimpressed by the Buccaneers last week, despite beating the Bears by 10. And I think this is the game where the Buccaneers fall back to earth a little bit. And I agree. Like, this Eagles team is more vulnerable than they were last year so far. Like, they are definitely lacking a little bit, but there's some very real concerns with that Buccaneers offensive line, and that Eagles defensive line, I think, it has a possibility to feast there. Whereas Baker Mayfield could sit back there against the Bears with no pass rush and slice and dice them when both their safeties were injured in the game as well. And they still only won by 10 points, despite getting a pick 6 on a screen pass caught at the 2-yard line. Like,
good point.
I feel like the Buccaneers have kind of, I don't want to discredit them by saying they lucked their way into a 2-0 start, but it feels like things have really gone their way in a way that I don't know that is sustainable, and might not happen as much against an actually good opponent like the Eagles compared to the Vikings and Bears they played, that neither one might make the playoffs.
The last Monday Night Football game is a Super Bowl rematch between the Los Angeles Rams at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals 3-point favorites here, but the Rams have looked good in their first 2 games, in my opinion, Lorin. They won week 1 against the Seahawks. They were going back and forth with the Niners last week before the Niners kind of took that game over. I'm going to take the Rams here because Joe Burrow's still been injured. We're hearing that it's still lingering. He's still dealing with it. He's wearing a sleeve on his calf. I'm going to need Joe Burrow to show me that he's completely, fully 100% healthy and back to where he was before I start believing in his backup being able to win games. So I'm taking the Rams here. Forget the 3 points. I don't even need that. What say you, Lorin?
Yeah, the Burrow injury is just too scary, too big of an impact here, too scary until we know until we have like some sort of like, oh yeah, we've seen him look 100%, he's ready to go.
Right.
Almost until they play unless they play like a really, really bad team, I can't trust them. Like they play the Cardinals in a few weeks. Sure, they could beat the Cardinals with an injured Burrow, but like without Burrow at 100%, I don't have the trust until I can see it happen from them. And yeah, like you said, I mean, the Rams have been really well coached. They're getting guys like Puka Nacua coming out of nowhere and playing really, really well. Like good for Sean McVay and for them for figuring that out. And for Matt Stafford for looking healthy. But it does feel like a very sad Super Bowl rematch. Like usually there'd be a little more to this, but it's just going to be a little bit ugly of a Super Bowl rematch, which is fine. But that's why it's buried as a second on the doubleheader on Monday night.
I hear you on that. Those were your picks of the week from the Locked On NFL podcast with all the odds and ends brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Lorin, thanks so much for doing the Friday show with me. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Of course, you can hear me 5 days a week on the Locked On Bears podcast and on Twitter anytime at Cox Sports 1.
Absolutely. I'm your host, Chris Carter. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com for all my coverage of Pitt and the Steelers there. You can also catch me on the Locked On Steelers podcast Monday through Friday, just like you can find this show and Lauren's show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel for all of the daily content that comes out for Locked On NFL. From Chris Carter and Lorin Cox, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you again next week.